What's up guys, my name is Ace, and welcome back to another gun guide. This is the series where I go into great detail with all of the stats as well as some excellent attachment combinations for every gun in Modern Warfare 2. And in today's episode, we're going to be moving on to the second battle rifle in the game. This is the SO-14. And just like with all of the battle rifles, we have a totally different damage profile when we're in semi-auto versus full auto mode. So let's start it off with our semi-auto damage profile, and with this, it's effectively going to be a 2 to 4 shot kill depending on the range and where in the body you're shooting them. But the most important thing to note here is in order to get a 2-shot kill, while it does have a really good range, you have to be hitting upper torso, neck, or head shots. And if you aren't hitting those, it's then going to take you 3 shots to kill, so it's not the most forgiving gun out there. Although at least within the first couple damage ranges, you could mix one stomach shot with one upper torso shot and still get a 2-shot kill. However, the moment you hit a single limb shot with this gun, it's now going to take you an extra bullet to kill. Additionally, it's worth noting we can't get a 1-shot kill to the head in core game modes with this gun, even in semi-auto. So that's one thing that holds this gun back in semi-auto compared to the Lockman 7.62 as well as the F-Tac Recon, because both of those can get a 1-shot kill to the head. As for our rate of fire potential in semi-auto mode, this is 429 rounds per minute. And what this means is the 2-shot time to kill potential is 140 milliseconds, which is insanely fast for this game. You're going to be dropping people almost instantly if you can get a 2-shot kill. However, it does have a fairly steep and punishing time to kill increase with a 3-shot kill. That will actually double our time to kill potential up to 280 milliseconds. And that's no longer a super competitive time to kill by any means. So that covers semi-auto. Now let's move on to the full auto damage profile. And in full auto, we actually only have 3 different damage ranges. And with this, it's now going to be a 3 to 5 shot kill depending on the range and the body multiplier zone that you're hitting. Now with this, the 3-shot kill potential is fairly forgiving up close. You can hit them anywhere in the torso, whether that's upper or lower torso. You're guaranteed a 3-shot kill there. And then beyond that, you really do have to start making sure you're hitting those torso and upper torso shots in order to make sure you don't drop off to a 5-shot kill. It is also worth noting you can get a 2-shot kill to the head with this in the maximum damage range, so that may be helpful in really close quarter situations. And now let's have a look at our rate of fire, which is 741 rounds per minute. That's actually quite fast for a battle rifle. And what this means is our 3-shot time to kill potential in full auto is 162 milliseconds, which, well, it's not as fast as our time to kill potential in semi-auto. This is still an incredibly fast time to kill. And our time to kill increase with that extra bullet to kill isn't as punishing as semi-auto. It's going to be now killing in 243 milliseconds with a 4-shot kill, and that's still a reasonable time to kill in this game. Next up, let's compare our damage ranges with full auto versus semi-auto, and as we can see here, our 2-shot kill potential in semi-auto extends out to 38 meters, whereas in full auto, that's going to be our 3-shot kill potential. It's also worth noting that our maximum damage range in full auto is significantly better than the maximum damage range in semi-auto, since they effectively just dropped that second damage range in full auto mode. So it's actually quite forgiving when it comes to ranges in full auto. After that, let's have a look at our idle sway, and as we can see here, there's definitely some sway while aiming down sight. Nothing too out of the ordinary, but this is something that may hold back that first shot accuracy at range. Then let's have a look at our recoil, and we're going to start this off with the semi-auto recoil plot. You can see things are pretty tight here. And after that, we'll have a look at our full auto recoil, which has definitely got a much higher magnitude. Once again, just like with the Lockman 7.62, I believe the recoil values themselves are actually the same between semi-auto and full auto. It's just you're seeing the higher magnitude with full auto because the fire rate is significantly higher, so there's less time for it to recenter between shots. It is also worth noting in semi-auto mode, while it is quite an accurate gun, there is a pretty big jump between the first and second shot that you fire, and that's very important to be aware of with a gun like this. And that right there now covers everything that's different between semi-auto and full auto. The rest of these base stats will apply regardless of which fire mode you're in. And when it comes to our hipfire, this is just standard for battle rifles, and actually not too bad at all. It's reasonably decent at hipfiring. Our bullet velocity is great, but fairly standard for battle rifles as well, at 660 meters per second. Our aim down sight time is unfortunately the slowest in the battle rifle category at 302 milliseconds. And our sprint to fire time is also noticeably slower than all of the other battle rifles at 270 milliseconds. So this definitely has the worst handling in the battle rifle department, and you definitely want to be aware of that while using this gun. As for a reload add time though, this is right around average for battle rifles, but it's still a bit on the slower side in general at 1.63 seconds. And then let's get into our mobility stats, and this is not an area where the SO-14 shines. When it comes to all of our movement speed values, they are all noticeably below average for the battle rifle category, and I mean battle rifles already don't have great movement speeds, so that's just not an area where this gun will excel. So there we go, that's going to wrap it up for the base stats of this gun, but now let's move on to the barrel attachments, and we'll see how they impact our ranges first. As you can see here, the two 22-inch barrels that we have access to will both increase our ranges by 16%, whereas the 18-inch barrel has no impact on our range, and the 16-inch barrel will reduce our range values by 10%. So really nothing too crazy here when it comes to these barrels and how they impact our ranges. Now let's move on to the recoil with these barrels. Keeping in mind these, of course, are full auto recoil plots, just because I can ensure consistency with the rate of fire every single time here. And you can see that first barrel seems to tighten up our recoil nicely. The second barrel doesn't really seem to have a super obvious positive or negative impact on recoil, whereas the last two, the big thing I noticed here is there's a lot more horizontal recoil, which makes it a lot harder to control. And then finally for our barrel stats, let's have a look at how they impact our aim down sight speeds. And you can see the first three barrels will all increase our aim down sight time, although there's no really massive increases here like we often see with many of the barrel attachments in this game. Whereas that final barrel will be slightly improving our aim down sight speed at 290 milliseconds. Now taking this a step further, let's have a look at our magazine attachments and how they impact our aim down sight speeds. And the first one only gives us 5 extra rounds in the magazine, and yet it does have a very noticeable increase to our aim down sight time. So I don't really think that increase to our aim down sight time is worth just 5 extra rounds in the mag. Whereas the 50 round drum mag obviously increases our aim down sight time by a very noticeable margin up to 380 milliseconds, but at least that's a lot more reasonable because we're getting a massive increase in our magazine capacity as well. And with that, it's finally time to move into some excellent attachment combinations for the SO-14. And the first one I wanted to share for you guys is my aggressive semi-auto build. This one's great for smaller maps, like even if you want to use this on shipment to grind, for instance, this is a great class setup for that. Or even on the other maps, if you just want to play things fairly aggressively and keep yourself in close quarters, this can actually be a pretty solid setup as long as you're making sure you're hitting upper torso, neck, or headshots with this. And for our attachments, we have the 16-inch chrome line barrel, we've got the OLEV laser, the FTAC RTP-40 stock, the FSS Gen 7 grip, and the armor-piercing ammunition. Basically, all of these are geared toward improving our aim-down sight speed, also helping our sprint-out time a little bit, and our aim-walking movement speed. And with this, we end up with an aim-down sight speed at around 235 milliseconds, which is great. That's actually a really good improvement. Typically, you don't even see improvements to your aim-down sight speed the moment you start using attachments. And our sprint-out time is also nicely improved. It's now 200 milliseconds, which is noticeably better than 270 milliseconds. And finally, since we're using this in semi-auto mode, our recoil is still very manageable. You just have to be aware of that big jump after the first shot fired. But once you do that, everything groups nice and tight together. And like I said, this is great for aggression and challenging gunfights at close to mid-range. I'd probably avoid longer range fights with this particular setup. As for the next setup I've got for you guys, and this is actually my preferred method of using the SO-14, this is with a full auto LMG-like build. So with this, we are using that 50 round drum magazine, and I'm going to be toggling immediately over to full auto. I don't want to use this one in semi-auto at all. We've got the second Tread 40 muzzle, the Commando foregrip, the OLEV laser, and once again that FTAC RTP-40 stock. With all of this combined, our aim down sight speed is slow, but at least somewhat reasonable still at 400 milliseconds. At least for an LMG style gun, that's a reasonable enough aim down sight speed. Our recoil is better than the base recoil, at least. It's pretty solid here. Keeping in mind, this is a 20 round recoil plot. I'm not firing that full 50 round magazine, so you can get a nice apples to apples comparison there with the recoil. And overall, if you just treat this like an LMG, you don't play too aggressively, you don't get caught sprinting or anything like that, and you're pre-aiming lanes, you can be shutting down lanes and killing people quite quickly at 162 milliseconds for that 3-shot kill. And like I said, this is my preferred method of running the SO-14. I definitely prefer using this one in full auto rather than semi-auto, largely due to the fact that it's just got a much more forgiving 3-shot kill potential compared to the unforgiving 2-shot kill potential in semi-auto mode. Also, since we don't get a 1-shot headshot potential in semi-auto mode, that's another thing that really detracts from that and pushes me in the direction of full auto. And with that, that's going to wrap it up for today's gun guide on the SO-14. As for my thoughts on this gun, I mean, I don't think it's completely horrible, but I also don't particularly like this gun a whole lot. If I am going to use it, like I said, I'm going to lean more toward the full auto mode. But honestly, when I look at my LMG build, I'd probably rather just use an actual LMG in the game. And that's more so just something I do to make this gun work. Now, of course, those are just my thoughts on this, though, and I'd love to hear what you guys think of the SO-14 in the comment section down below. And also, if you guys have missed any of the previous episodes of Gun Guides, I will leave a link to the playlist in the description of the video. If you enjoyed this one, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.